Great, thank you so much, Lisa. I'd like to thank you and the conference organizers and ApplySci for putting together such a great conference, as well as all of you for your attention for the next 25 minutes, because I recognize I'm the only thing standing between you and lunch, so we'll get through this together. Much more interesting. We'll hope so. So we'll find out in 24 minutes. So I'm Erica Ross. I'm the Director of Applied Research for Abbott Neuromodulation. I sit within the research and development group and really help to try to feed the funnel for new technology that we're planning on developing in the next generation devices. At Abbott, within Abbott Neuromodulation, we have a deep brain stimulation device, a spinal cord stimulation device for chronic pain, as well as a dorsal root ganglion stimulation device. I'm going to focus my talk today on chronic pain and spinal cord stimulation, but there's a lot of opportunity at the intersection of neuromodulation, neuroscience, and digital health to really drive different disorders that we're treating with neuromodulation forward as we think about the future of medicine and access to patients. The other one, there we go. Okay, great. So the field of neuromodulation really has a long-standing history, really anchored in the cardiac pacemaker world. So all the way back to the late 50s, where the first cardiac pacemaker was approved, we've really leveraged the materials that were used in those products. So basic can, basic lead, we've kind of used that to get to build out different indications and different areas of stimulation across neuromodulation therapies. So cochlear stimulation for hearing aid, spinal cord stimulation for pain and a couple other disorders, deep brain stimulation, movement disorders, and moving forward to today, where we've started incorporating sensing within the same materials, but incorporating new tools to really help us understand more about patients and how we're treating them, and to really try to improve therapies all along the way. I think what we've seen in this field is that we can really also leverage technology that's being developed in parallel, and I think that's really what's going to take a lot of the same hardware that we've been working on for the last few decades and really help us take this field to the next generation, to really the future where we need to be headed. So in neuroscience, we've seen this is a little bit hyperbolic going back to Ramon Cajal, but we've seen a huge improvement in the way that we're understanding and able to really dissect the circuits that are within the nervous system, both centrally and peripherally. We've seen miniaturization of the hardware and new technologies that have been driven into neuromodulation therapies. And we've seen technology and infrastructure and data infrastructure and processing tools improve. I heard a reference by Walter earlier today about edge computing. That's an area that we have a lot of excitement around, because this is really the future of medicine. And so in seeing the way that all of these fields are intersecting and really understanding how we can pull from these different areas is really the direction we're heading. And so I'm gonna talk about chronic pain and start with our understanding and kind of our foundation of where we focused, building our neuroscience case for chronic pain treatment with spinal cord stimulation. And so very, very high level, simple neuroscience here. We have within pain, the pain intensity is interpreted by the lateral pain pathway. More of the attention to pain is processed through the medial pathway, which involves the anterior cingulate cortex, which I'll talk about a little bit in the next couple of slides. And pain inhibition really involves the descending pain pathway. And so the idea behind the waveform that we've employed in our spinal cord stimulation device is this concept that nerves respond to different kinds of stimulation in different ways. You take the language that the nervous system uses to communicate in the fastest way possible, which is electricity, and you apply it back to the nervous system and see what happens. And so you can again, very simply use either tonic firing or burst firing to really communicate with different components of the nervous system. The foundation of our technology in this particular waveform was developed by a neurosurgeon named Dirk de Ridder. And so BurstDR is Burst de Ridder, named after him, because he really was the person who incepted this waveform in particular, with a couple tweaks. So the idea was that you take something that is more physiologic for the nervous system and you change it in a way that you can make it as low energy as possible, or use the least amount of current necessary to really drive information into the nervous system. And so employed a passive recharge to really allow the charge to build up with it at the neural interface, and really allow there to be a carryover effect while really driving that information into the central nervous system. And through the course of kind of understanding this technology and running different clinical trials to see how effective it was, he also in parallel really looked at using imaging to understand which parts of the brain were involved with burst stimulation. So we see over and over that the anterior cingulate cortex is involved, where we're really able to drive this into this part of the circuit that's involved in more of the emotional components of pain. There's a couple brains missing from this slide, but with tonic stimulation, you don't see those parts of the brain light up as well. And so we've taken some of this, and we've started looking in rodent models to understand a little bit better about how this particular waveform is working compared to tonic and compared to some other things that we can do. The one thing that we've really focused on recently is trying to understand how important timing is. If you can really extend the battery life of a stimulation device that makes this therapy a little bit more accessible for more people. And so we started thinking about how much we could kind of wait between therapy doses, and really anchored this to a mouse model of neurostimulation. So here we're looking at tonic stimulation, our typical BurstDR stimulation, and then a dosed option of this, where we're waiting several minutes between stimulation sessions and looking to see if we still see the same engagement within the anterior cingulate cortex. And in this rodent model, we were able to see the same level of activity within the anterior cingulate, which kind of made us think that we could really interleave dosing a little bit more to extend battery life. And so BurstDR came out in about 2010. And we've done several different clinical studies to try to improve upon it and try to see if we could tweak different things to really improve patient response. Our most recent study is this BOLD study, and this was a clinical trial that was built because of some of this early preclinical work where we saw we were able to delay, or with interleaved or intermittent stimulation, we were able to see the same level of engagement within the anterior cingulate cortex. And so I do want to take a minute to pause and appreciate the business of naming clinical studies. So this is my team will kill me for this. I'm constantly after them about the way we name studies, but BurstDR microdosing stimulation in de novo patients. I think this is a great place where we could use a little artificial intelligence help for teams like mine to maybe pick first letters instead and make some acronyms that make a little bit more sense than choose your own adventure by picking out whatever letters make sense. So this is our BOLD study. We just wrapped this up last year. There were numbers above those bars at some point, but I guess you'll have to stick with me and trust that 46% of patients were using the lowest dose possible. So in this study, patients had the ability to choose how long between stimulation sessions. Excuse me, I'm sorry. how long between stimulation sessions they would like to go. And the longest option was 30 to 360 seconds between stimulation sessions. And so they actively chose to delay that period of time between stimulations. And after this, we measured at periodic time points throughout the study to see how their pain response was when they came back into the clinic. And according to this very non-objective measure of pain, but it's what we have, the VOS score, we saw that there was a significant reduction compared to baseline across patients in this study, out to 6 months post follow-up. We also saw that in this study, we had a significant improvement in ODI, so just in general state and disability of patients who were involved in the study. So from baseline, where patients had a 78% severe kind of crippling, bedridden ODI score, that went down to 29%, and people who were mild to moderate level of severity increased up to 71%. So we saw a very significant improvement in patients, even with this intermittent dosing protocol. Finally, we saw this almost 90% of people reporting a significant improvement in their quality of life. And additionally, this improvement in psychometric outcomes, so really hitting that back to the neuroscience of this, where we believe that we have this engagement with the medial pain pathway. We're seeing this significant improvement in psychometric outcomes as well. And both on the average and in each subset as well of pain catastrophizing. And so from this study, we were able to go to the FDA and make the point that we're not changing anything really. We're just delivering stimulation at an intermittent interval, and that with this ability to kind of extend the number of sessions that you can get from a single implanted device, you're able to increase the battery life. And they agreed, and we were able to launch our Proclaim XR system, so extended release system. And this is the first battery that's ever been in the neuromodulation field where we're able to warranty it out to 5 years, because we have the ability to really drive therapy for a very long period of time. And this was because patients really want this. So they don't want to have to mess with their therapy a lot. They don't want to have to keep coming back in for surgeries. They don't want to recharge their system. The thing with folks with chronic pain, on the other hand, is that they really need attention, and they need to be in the healthcare system, and they need to have interaction with folks who are delivering healthcare. They don't necessarily need to worry about the doses that they're getting on a day-to-day basis, but they do need some sort of interaction. I think that's really where a lot of the work that is being done in digital health can be leveraged into things like this, where we now have a bit of a set it and forget it system, where you don't have to tweak the knobs as much or so often, or replace the battery as regularly, but you can leverage digital health infrastructure to really make sure that patients are doing well over time. And so with this, I think it's good to kind of point out some wins in the area. We've seen wearables enable at-home access and analytics. So we're seeing with things like the AliveCore wrist-worn ECG, we've seen some great wins in diagnostics, and we've seen same thing with iRhythm patch. With the Omron blood pressure monitor as well. And finally, our Freestyle Libre glucose monitor, continuous glucose monitor. I think that there have been some great wins in the digital health side and monitoring with wearable devices. We've also seen digital therapeutics that have helped really drive improved health outcomes. So Propeller has a great study out there that has shown improved improved outcomes with this digital therapeutic. Proteus, we saw some great digital tracking tools to help with people taking drugs and making sure that they were in the system. Most recently, before I joined Abbott, I was with a company called Cala Health, which came out of Stanford, out of the Stanford Biodesign program about 5 years ago, almost 6 now. And they this last year launched their first product, which is a digitally enabled neurostimulation device to treat patients with essential tremor, so hand tremor. And this is a great example of a system that is digitally enabled that can both deliver a therapy, a neuromodulation therapy, and also keep track of how patients are doing over time. So really look at movement over time and see how severe people are, and help provide recommendations. So I think we do need to acknowledge that there's been that we've seen this curve. The hype cycle has happened in this space. And I think we've seen some big wins, and we've seen some disillusionment, but I think we're really at that point of stabilization where we're able to integrate these digital health tools going forward in the plateau of productivity. And so with that, I think we've seen this evolution of neuroscience. We've seen improvements in the way that we can treat patients in neuromodulation with new waveforms, and that we're really at the beginning of that. This is a pretty simple example. And I think with the direction and the trajectory of digital health integration, I think we're really primed to see some exciting things coming up with patient access and care over time. With that, I would be happy to take any questions that you might have. Thanks.
Wonderful talk, Erica, and I bet you can predict my question, but for the sake of our audience, I'm wondering what your thoughts are for pain involving combination therapy with other digital interventions.
And I think that pain is such a perfect pool of people who could really benefit from the combination of a therapy and digitally enabled tools. There's a physiologic component of pain, and there is a huge psychologic component of pain. And if we can come up with these ways to really combine all of those tools, that's really going to help improve patient care in a way that we haven't really seen yet. All right. Thank you.